The train hissed to a stop like a dying animal, steam curling low across the platform in ghostly fingers. The bride stepped down, her boots landing with a dull thud on cracked planks worn smooth by years of dust and waiting. The platform was nearly empty, just a drunk asleep against a post, and a boy hawking newspapers with headlines days out of date. No one looked up. No one waited. She adjusted her shawl, tightened her grip on the worn carpet bag at her side. The letter was folded in her pocket, damp with sweat despite the dry heat. She'd read it so many times the ink had begun to fade. A promise in hard script, marriage offered in exchange for presents. Asterisk companionship. Help. Children. Asterisk the handwriting had been clean, deliberate, like a man trying to prove he had nothing to hide. The sky stretched endless above, pale blue around the edges, bleeding orange toward the west. She stood there a moment, breathing it in. It smelled of iron rails, far-off cattle, and something else she hadn't known she'd missed. Space. But no one came. She hired a wagon from a man who didn't ask questions. When she told him the name of the homestead, he raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. The ride was long and silent, wheels crunching over bone-dry dirt, prairie grass dancing in brittle waves. The land was empty in a way that made your insides feel hollow too. By the time they reached the house, the sun was a split peach behind the hills. The wagon creaked to a stop near the front porch of a house that looked as though it had survived war, or been built during one. The paint had peeled in strips. One shutter hung askew like a broken wing. The porch sagged in the middle, boards gray and groaning. 9 children stood lined along it, a strange assembly. Bare feet, mismatched clothes, eyes wide but unblinking. They stared at her like she was a ghost. The oldest stepped forward. 14, maybe 15. Too thin. A sharp-boned thing with a too-big coat hanging off his frame and a rusted shotgun cradled in his arms. "You're late," he said. She climbed down from the wagon without answering. Her voice would come later. Right now, she needed to see what the air felt like on this land. Dry. Hot. Something sour mixed in, copper and ash. "I came as quick as I could," she said finally. "Ain't nobody here for you," the boy replied. The driver made a sound and turned his team around without a word. Dust kicked up behind him and vanished. She looked at the children again. All 9 still stood there. They made no move toward her. "Well," she said, shifting the bag on her hip. "Looks like I'm here anyway." Inside, the house was cooler but no more inviting. The windows were thick with grime, and the air smelled of old wood, ash, and something darker, mildew maybe, or grief. She walked past the children without being told where to go. Her boots thudded on the floorboards in rhythm with her heartbeat. The kitchen was half clean. A pot hung cold over the hearth. A pile of root vegetables sat unpeeled in a bowl. Flies gathered near the window. She rolled up her sleeves. She didn't speak again until dinner. She cooked with what she found: salt pork, onions, beans. The children sat at the table in silence, arranged by age like church pews. No one reached for the food until she did. Then they ate like animals in borrowed manners, tearing bread, slurping broth. The youngest, a boy no more than 4, smeared beans across the table and giggled. The eldest smacked his hand and shot a look her way, testing if she'd object. She didn't. Afterward, she washed dishes while the children trickled away like smoke. The eldest lingered at the table, watching her. She could feel his suspicion like heat on her neck. "Where is he?" she asked finally. The boy shrugged, but the movement was too stiff to be careless. "Gone. Dead." "Maybe." He stood and left before she could say more. That night, she slept in the room that had been made up for her. The bed was hard. The sheets had been freshly laid, but were cold to the touch. One candle burned low on the bedside. In the far wall, a nail held a coat, dark brown, heavy wool, torn at the shoulder and stained down one side with dry blood. She didn't touch it. In the morning, she rose before the sun and stepped outside. The land stretched flat and quiet. The house behind her groaned in the breeze. Wind slid through the grass like a whisper, but it brought no answers. She started hauling water. The children came out slowly, curious in the way feral things are. A girl with braids helped without being asked. Two of the younger ones stared, wide-eyed, while she fixed the chicken coop gate with a spare nail she found under the porch. By mid-morning, they were circling her like wary dogs, neither warm nor cold, just uncertain. She let them come. Later, while digging through the pantry for flour, she found an old tin box pushed behind a sack of oats. Inside were letters, unsent, all addressed to the same name scratched on the envelope. Hers. The handwriting was the same, that careful, precise scrawl. But the messages were broken, fragmented. The first said, "I ain't the man I was. Don't expect that." The next, a week later, "The land's eating me. I can't stop dreaming of the fire. If you come, bring matches." Or a Bible. She stopped reading. That night, after the children had gone to bed, she sat on the front porch with the shotgun beside her. She didn't light a lamp. She didn't move when the coyotes howled in the hills. Somewhere in the dark, a floorboard creaked inside the house. She didn't turn around. She was already starting to understand. He had left a house, a name, and 9 shadows behind. And now she'd stepped into the space between. The porch wood was splintering under her hands, and the stars above were too sharp to look at. She stared out across the prairie, listening to the wind move over the grass. No one had told her the truth, but no one had made her leave either. She stayed. The land revealed itself in pieces, never all at once. Mornings began with the grind of the pump handle and the metallic groan of water coughing into buckets. Each sound became part of her new vocabulary, each task a way to learn what had been left behind and what was worth holding on to. She worked without complaint. The children watched her from the corners of fences and doorframes, like deer unsure if the smoke in the trees meant fire or just someone warming their hands. She spent most of her time outside, repairing things that groaned too loudly in the wind. The barn door, the chicken fence, the crumbling garden beds where weeds had claimed territory. She didn't ask the children for help, but some of them began drifting close. The youngest followed her with a small wooden horse in one hand and a piece of bread in the other. The girl with the braids handed her nails in silence when she repaired the coop roof. The eldest boy stayed distant, always watching but never speaking unless he had to. His name, she learned from the others, was Isaiah. He moved like someone always listening for hoofbeats. One morning, while the heat still clung to the dew and the sky hadn't yet decided what kind of day it would be, she stepped into the back room behind the kitchen. The door had been jammed, swollen by time or heat, but she forced it open with a shoulder. Dust bloomed around her, and the smell of old leather and ashes filled her nose. It was a storage room, or had been. Crates stacked high. A trunk in the corner with brass fittings dulled by years. Inside it, she found a bundle of letters tied with a blue ribbon. The paper was brittle, the ink smeared in places. They weren't addressed to her. One by one, she unfolded them. Some were written in a woman's looping script, some in a tighter hand that matched the letter she had received, the one that had brought her here. The earliest ones were full of hope. Plans. The middle ones turned darker. Names she didn't recognize were crossed out. One letter ended in a splatter of ink, the final line reading, "Asterisk, I won't run again. Not if they come for me. Asterisk." She put them back where she found them, but the words followed her. That night, after the children were asleep, she sat in the main room with the lantern burning low. The walls seemed to listen. Outside, wind moved through the long grass like something being chased. She waited until Isaiah passed through, shoulders tense, eyes hard. He tried to go by without speaking. "You think I'm just another fool," she said softly. He stopped. "I think you came here not knowing the whole of it," he said. She looked at him. "Then tell me." He sat on the edge of a hearth, arms crossed tight over his chest. His mouth twitched like he was choosing which lie to leave out. "My pa, he wasn't like other men. He fought in the war, but not on one side the way most folks did. He fought for who paid. Said flags didn't feed you, but bullets sure did." She let the silence stretch, let it pull the truth from him like water from a dry well. He met her mama on Apache land, took her from a raid. But she stayed. Or said she did. Some of us think she loved him. Others think she didn't know no better. What happened to her? Died birthing the twins. After that, he changed. He stood and paced once, then stopped. People came looking for him. More than once. Men with government stars and men with scars. Sometimes he ran him off. Sometimes he made deals. Said he was protecting us. From what? From what he'd done. He left before she could ask more. The door clicked shut behind him, soft but final. The next day brought heat that shimmered on the horizon like a mirage. She worked anyway, her hands blistered but steady. She needed the motion, needed the ache in her shoulders to quiet the storm growing in her head. That afternoon, a stranger came. He rode in from the east, hoarse, sweat-slick, and panting. Dust coated his coat, and his eyes were the kind that didn't blink much. She met him on the porch with the shotgun cradled, though not aimed. He tipped his hat, eyes scanning her like a ledger. "Looking for a man used to live here," he said. Her heart beat once, hard. "No man here." "Sure there is," he said, and smiled like a fox smiling at a chicken too dumb to run. She held her ground. "Name?" He gave it, and it was the one from her letter. The man who should have been waiting at the station. The man who had written her with promises and longing and the weight of 9 lives beneath his name. She shrugged.
"Dead, maybe."
He didn't flinch. Just nodded like he'd expected it. "He owe me something. Or maybe he owes someone I work for. Either way, if he ain't dead, I'd appreciate you passing along that he ought to be." He rode off without another word. She stood on the porch long after he vanished. The shotgun felt heavier now, like it carried more than shells. That night, she went under the bed. A place she'd avoided since her arrival. Found a box wrapped in canvas and twine. Inside, a Colt revolver, a handful of bullets, and a wanted poster. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. The ink had bled, but the words were clear. Wanted, $500. Asterisk desertion. Murder. Treason. Asterisk. Known aliases, Elijah Hart. Dead or alive. No photograph. Just a rough sketch of a man with hard eyes and a scar down his chin. A man she had never met, but who now lived in the faces of the 9 children asleep under the same roof. She closed the box and didn't sleep. The next morning, Isaiah didn't ask where she'd gone in the night, and she didn't offer it. But something had shifted between them. He handed her a cup of water as she hauled kindling, and when he spoke, it wasn't sharp. It was something softer, carved out of worry. "He's not what you think," he said. She looked at him, the wind tugging at her shawl, dust circling their boots. "I don't know what I think yet," she replied. "But I know I'm not leaving." And just like that, a piece of him seemed to settle. Not in trust, not yet. But in recognition. She was no longer a visitor. She was something else entirely. The monsoon broke 2 nights later. Wind like a saw against the eaves. Rain that hammered the roof like fists. The house held, barely. Water came in around the windows and under the doors. The children huddled in the parlor beneath quilts, the youngest 2 asleep against each other's shoulders. She sat by the fire, legs folded under her, the revolver laid across her knees. Isaiah stood by the window, one palm flat to the glass like he was trying to feel the shape of the storm. His voice, when it came, was soft enough to be mistaken for wind. "They always come when the weather turns." She looked up. "Who?" "Men who think the land owes 'em something. Or that we do." Thunder cracked like the sky had split. The firelight jumped across his face, and for a second, he looked like a man instead of a boy. Someone forged too fast in a too hot world. "They'll come for him again," Isaiah said. "Even if he's gone. Some don't know. Others don't care." She traced the revolver's barrel with one thumb. "Let him come." Outside, rain sheared sideways across the yard, flattening the grass, turning dust to mud. The sound of it drummed on the roof, a rhythm like hoofbeats. By morning, the world was quiet again, wrecked, but calm. The fence had fallen in the north pasture. The garden lay flattened, carrots poking up like broken fingers. She and Isaiah rebuilt what they could. The air still smelled of wet wood and ozone. That night, she found the youngest girl crying in the loft. She climbed the ladder slowly, careful not to creak the boards too loud. The child, maybe 6, sat wrapped in a blanket, her face streaked with silent tears. "I had a dream," the girl whispered. She waited. There was fire in the hills. Not like before. This time it came down. She pulled the child close, held her against the rising chill of night. Through the slats in the loft wall, the moon stared down, half full and sharp-edged. The next few days passed without incident. But the quiet had weight, like the land was holding its breath. Even the animals moved slower. The chicken stopped laying. The dog refused to leave the porch. Then came the rider. He didn't come fast, didn't kick up dust or draw attention. He rode like someone with time, slow, deliberate, with a rifle slung across his back and a badge stitched into the inside of his duster. He stopped just short of the gate, sat there, letting the horse breathe, eyes locked on the house like it was a riddle he half remembered. She stepped out to meet him, boots squelching in the still damp earth. "You're the woman who answered Elijah Hart's letter," the man said. "That right?" She didn't answer. "Name's Deputy Cal Vorn. Been chasing ghosts a long time. This one keeps leading back here." She rested her hand near the pistol at her waist but didn't draw. "He's gone," she said. "Left them behind." Vorn's eyes narrowed. "Dead. No grave." He nodded once. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Those kids, they're his? They're their own." He dismounted, slow as a sunrise. She noticed his limp then, the stiffness in one leg. Old wound. Not fresh. The kind that made a man mean. "I'm not here for blood," he said. "Not yet." But he killed 3 marshals in Kansas. Torched a barn full of hostages in New Mexico. Don't matter if he's your husband or your ghost. Someone's gonna come looking. Worse than me, eventually. She studied him. There was something beneath the badge. Something frayed. "What do you want?" "Truth," he said. "And maybe to stop running." She nodded toward the porch. "You'll eat first." They sat at the long table, her and the deputy, with Isaiah watching from the doorway and the others silent in the hall beyond. She served beans and cornbread. Simple fare, hot and filling. Vorn ate like a man who hadn't had food that didn't taste like ash in months. After, he leaned back, wiped his mouth on his sleeve. "I followed him through 3 counties," he said. "Man like that, he don't change. Just buries things deep." She poured him black coffee, then sat opposite. "Maybe that's true," she said. "But whatever he was, he's not here now." He looked at her then really looked, like he was measuring the space she occupied. Not just a chair, not just a role. Something solid. Something intractable. "You think you can protect them?" She didn't blink. "No. But I will." Vorn smiled, and it wasn't kind. "Then you better be willing to kill for him." The room went still. Isaiah stepped closer, voice low but clear. "She's not the one you should be worried about." Vorn stood. "Maybe not. But the ones coming next, they won't sit for coffee. They won't talk." He left at dusk, riding west into the wind. No threats. No promises. Just a trail of hoofprints and a silence that pressed against the windows long after he disappeared. That night, she gathered the children around the hearth. Told them what they needed to know, and no more. "You don't owe his name. You don't owe his sins. But others will come, and they won't see children. They'll see leverage." One of the twins, hair tangled like briar, looked up. "Will you run?" She shook her head. "No." "Will we fight?" "We'll survive," she said. "And if that means fighting, then yes." Isaiah didn't speak, but later she found him in the barn, oiling the shotgun with practiced hands. His jaw was tight, but his movements were clean, steady. Not the fury of a boy. The readiness of someone who had already made peace with war. The sky turned dark early. A blood moon hung low, casting long, cruel shadows across the yard. She stood in the doorway a long time, watching the land sleep fitful under red light. The wind shifted, cool and sharp. Somewhere in the hills, a coyote cried. And from far beyond that, too distant to be real, yet too close to ignore, came the sound of hooves. Multiple, heavy, measured. She didn't go inside. She gripped the revolver tighter and waited, wind biting her cheeks, the smell of storm returning to the air. They weren't ready, but they would be. Dawn came slow, bleeding across the sky in bruised purples and dull rose. Fog clung low to the earth like breath that hadn't yet dispersed, and the land held itself in stillness, as if the world sensed what was coming. She rose before the children. Boiled water. Ground coffee with the butt of a knife. Her fingers were steady, but something inside her ticked with quiet urgency. Today would not be one with fences or mended boots. She stepped outside, steam rising from her cup, the air sharp with cold and sage. Isaiah was already at the barn. His coat was dusted with straw, and a pistol hung at his hip. Not in a holster, just tied there with twine. "We've got maybe an hour," he said without turning. "I saw dust on the horizon. 2 riders, maybe 3. She didn't answer. She only looked out toward the distant line where land met sky and let the quiet stretch. When it snapped, she wanted to feel it. By mid-morning, the children had been gathered inside. Isaiah rigged a bell to the gate, an old pan strung on wire. The younger ones crouched beneath windows, hands wrapped around blankets, eyes too wide for their age. The eldest girl, Lorna, held a kitchen knife in one shaking hand and a Bible in the other. "They'll break that gate," Isaiah said. "Even if they don't shoot first." She didn't move from the porch. Her hair was braided back tight. Her coat was patched and worn. The revolver sat on her lap, like it belonged there. "Then we won't wait behind it," she said. "We meet them in the yard. Like we've got nothing to hide." Isaiah looked at her. "But we do." "Yes," she said. "And they expect shame."
Fear.
"That's our weapon." He nodded once. No more argument. They came just past noon, 3 men on horses that bore the dust of long travel. The leader wore a broad-brimmed hat, the kind that cast a shadow over a face even at high sun. The second chewed on a matchstick. The third never stopped scanning the house. They didn't dismount. The leader, scar along the jaw, sun-baked skin, knuckles like worn stone, tipped his chin. "You the new woman?" She nodded. "I ain't here for you," he said. "Just here to collect what belongs to a man named Elijah Hart. Nothing here belongs to him anymore." "That's so." His voice was dry gravel. "He made a deal. Left some things unfinished." She stood. The wind caught her coat and lifted the hem like a whisper. "Then he can come finish them." The matchstick chewer chuckled. "Ma'am, we don't need him to settle accounts. We just need the weight of him." Isaiah stepped forward, rifle across his chest. "You'll have to go through both of us." The third man, twitchy young, eyes like broken glass, spat. "Easy thing to do." The leader raised a hand, calm as a preacher at a graveside. "Ain't gotta end messy. We just need one kid. Or even a name. Something that makes up for the trouble he caused." The silence that followed was total. Inside, Lorna reached for the others, pulled the smallest 2 behind her. The boy who never spoke began to weep quietly, his fist clenched around a carved wooden rabbit. The woman, still nameless to them, still standing without a past, stepped down from the porch. Her boots pressed prints into the dust. "You touch one hair," she said, "and I will dig your graves myself." Something in her voice cracked the calm. The young one reached for his gun. Isaiah raised his rifle. The leader's horse stomped and turned, uneasy now. A shot cracked. Then 2. Dust exploded. Splinters flew from the porch rail. One of the horses screamed. The woman dropped to one knee and fired once, clean, precise. The young one spun sideways off his saddle, a red blossom blooming from his shoulder. Isaiah shouted something, but she didn't hear it. The world had narrowed to a tunnel. The leader rode straight at her. She rose, leveled the revolver, and fired again.
Missed.
He charged, pistol drawn, face twisted in something between rage and regret. Then came another shot from behind. Deputy Vaughan. He stood at the edge of the yard, rifle braced against a crooked leg, jaw set like stone. The leader's horse collapsed mid-stride. The man tumbled, landed hard, and didn't rise. The last rider fled. Didn't shoot. Didn't shout. Just turned and vanished into the dust. Silence fell again, broken only by the clatter of the windmill and the distant wheeze of a dying horse. She turned slowly. Vorn walked forward, rifle still warm. He didn't smile, just nodded. "I told you worse would come," he said. "You were late. Always am." She stared at the body in the yard. The leader was still breathing, shallow, rattling. His gun lay inches from his twitching fingers. She walked to him, stood over him. "You had a choice," she said. His eyes fluttered. Blood at his lips. "So did he whispered.
She didn't speak.
Didn't touch the gun. Just turned and walked back to the house. Inside, the children clung together. Lorna was shaking, but not crying. Isaiah lowered his rifle slowly, the barrel hot. "This won't be the last."
"No," she said.
"But it's the first they'll remember." Vorn leaned against the doorframe. "You're not just surviving anymore."
"No," she said.
"I'm building something, whether the past wants to burn it down or not." He took off his hat. "Then maybe I'll stay a while." She didn't say yes. Didn't say no. Instead, she sat with the children and began stitching a rip in Lorna's sleeve. Thread pulled clean through linen. Soft, slow, certain. Outside, the wind shifted. Carried the smell of gunpowder and rain. But also wheat. Also promise. They were no longer waiting. They were rooted now. And the land, wild, hard, and unforgiving, had finally started to recognize them as its own.